We are taught from the youngest age that being liked is the goal. We learn to smile when we're sad, to say yes when our body screams no, and to perform a version of ourselves that feels digestible, acceptable, likable. We wear masks so convincingly that after a while we forget what our real face even looks like. And underneath it all is one aching question: will I still belong if I stop performing? Here's the truth. Chasing approval is emotional starvation disguised as success. Every time we bend ourselves for someone else's comfort, we chip away at our own soul. Every time we silence our truth for fear of being judged, we lose intimacy with ourselves. Authenticity begins where approval seeking ends, not because we stop caring altogether, but because we realize this: the cost of pretending is far too high. Approval is conditional, but authenticity is liberating. When you let go of the need to be understood, validated, or praised by everyone in the room, something miraculous happens. You come home to yourself. You start dressing how you want, speaking from your gut, moving through the world with a quiet courage that says, I'd rather be real and rejected than fake and adored. You stop chasing acceptance and begin embodying truth. And the right people, they don't just accept you, they recognize you. They see you without you having to audition, but more importantly, you begin to recognize you. Not the polished version, not the curated persona, but the real, breathing, feeling, fiercely imperfect version of you who was never meant to shrink. Letting go of approval isn't easy. It feels terrifying at first, but what lies on the other side is freedom. Freedom to live without editing your essence. Freedom to say, this is who I am, and mean it. And in that brave, sacred space, authenticity is no longer something you try to find. It becomes the ground you stand on. We love the illusion of control. We crave it, cling to it, and confuse it with safety. We build calendars, spreadsheets, 5-year plans, and backup plans for our backup plans. We analyze conversations on repeat, trying to control how others perceive us. We replay the past and rehearse the future, thinking if we can just plan enough, prepare enough, care enough, nothing will hurt us, no one will leave, nothing will fall apart. But here's the hard truth. Control is not safety. It's a shield, a false crown we wear, thinking it makes us powerful. In reality, it weighs us down. It makes our lives small and rigid. It keeps us from experiencing the very flow and ease we say we want. Because control requires constant management of people, outcomes, emotions, and anything that needs to be managed 24/7 is not freedom. It's fear dressed up in perfectionism. We try to control people because we fear rejection. We try to control outcomes because we fear loss. But life isn't meant to be gripped like a rope we're terrified to let go of. Life asks for partnership, not domination. And the moment we loosen our grip, even just a little, we begin to feel something unfamiliar but deeply needed: relief. The truth is, we were never meant to carry the burden of controlling everything. That's not strength, it's suffering. Real strength is allowing uncertainty and still choosing to show up with an open heart. It's trusting that even when things don't go according to our plan, they might be going according to a deeper wisdom. And that doesn't mean we stop caring. It means we stop trying to micromanage the universe. When you remove the heavy crown of control, you begin to experience life in a completely new way. Spontaneity returns. Joy sneaks in unexpectedly. People surprise you in good ways. You begin to trust yourself more and obsess less. You make peace with not knowing. And in that surrender, you begin to hear the quiet voice inside you say, this is who I am when I'm not trying to force everything. Letting go doesn't mean you float aimlessly. It means you learn how to swim with the current, not against it. You lead with presence instead of pressure. And most beautifully, you begin to feel what it's like to live, not just manage life. So take off the crown, lay it down gently. It was never yours to wear. And in its absence, let something softer, something wilder guide you forward. Somewhere along the way, many of us inherited a dangerous belief that our worth is measured by how much we give, how well we fix, how consistently we show up for others, even when no one shows up for us. We became the dependable one, the strong one, the one who listens, absorbs, supports, holds space. We became the glue, the rock, the safety net. And silently, we disappeared in the process. We learned to equate love with sacrifice, connection with self-abandonment. We believed that being needed was the same as being loved. But there's a cost to carrying everyone's world on your shoulders. And that cost is often yourself, your energy, your joy, your inner peace. The truth is sobering. You were never meant to be everything for everyone. That's not love, that's exhaustion. That's codependency in disguise. That's a soul spreading itself so thin that it forgets its own shape. And the worst part, the more you give beyond your capacity, the more invisible you become to the very people you're trying to save. When you stop trying to rescue, fix, and manage everyone else's emotional landscape, you make a powerful shift from martyrdom to maturity. You begin to understand that love is not proven through burnout. It's not earned by overextending. It's not measured by how much of yourself you give away. Healthy love includes boundaries, rest, and the radical act of saying no, not from coldness, but from clarity. And you know what's beautiful? The moment you stop being everything for everyone, you start being something honest and whole for yourself. You reconnect with your own needs, not as inconveniences, but as signals of aliveness. You learn to sit with your own feelings instead of managing everyone else's. You reclaim your time, your energy, your voice. Yes, some people will call it selfish. Let them. People who benefit from your self-abandonment will always label your healing as betrayal, but you're not betraying anyone. You're honoring yourself, and that matters. You don't have to apologize for putting yourself first. You don't have to feel guilty for stepping out of roles you were never meant to play. The world doesn't need another exhausted woman performing love. It needs people who are rested, rooted, and real. People who give from overflow, not depletion. People who know their capacity and choose to live within it, not out of fear, but out of deep self-respect. So let the fixing go, let the saving go, let the pressure go. You were never meant to be the answer to everyone else's problems. You were meant to be you, fully, fiercely, freely. And that is more than enough. We live in a world that constantly tells us to share. Share your feelings, share your wounds, share your stories. And while vulnerability is powerful, we often forget a crucial truth. Not everyone has earned the right to hear your story. Not every space is sacred. Not every listener is safe. There's a kind of strength that doesn't shout, that doesn't explain, that doesn't post a caption. It's the kind of strength that lives in silence, in restraint, in knowing that some parts of you are not meant to be consumed, debated, or picked apart. Some truths are not for public consumption. They are for your own becoming. We confuse openness with availability. We confuse honesty with transparency, but there is a sacred difference between being real and being accessible. You can be deeply authentic without bleeding in public. You can be soft and true and still choose to say, this part of me is private. This part of me is still healing. Silence isn't hiding, silence is choosing. It's a form of self-respect. It's the wisdom to know that your energy is a resource, your emotions are sacred, and your journey is not a performance. When you stop caring about constantly being understood, defended, or validated, you reclaim your power. You stop giving away pieces of yourself to people who are only curious, not caring. You stop narrating your growth just to prove it's happening. And here's what many people don't realize. Healing often happens in the quiet, in the still moments where nothing is being said, but everything is being processed. You learn to hold your own hand. You learn to sit with yourself, no longer needing a witness to validate your progress. Silence becomes your sanctuary, not your prison. You are not obligated to explain your no. You don't owe a response to every question. You are allowed to pull back, not out of fear, but out of discernment. Protecting your inner world isn't selfish. It's sacred stewardship. It means you're finally treating your heart like something precious. Let people assume, let them project, let them wonder why you've gone quiet. That's okay. You're not withdrawing, you're refining. You're listening inward more than you're broadcasting outward. And that right there is a revolution in a world that demands constant access. So hold your silence like a sacred flame, not because you're hiding, but because you finally understand this. Your inner world is not up for negotiation. You don't need to be louder. You need to be more loyal to your own rhythm, your own timing, your own truth. And when you live from that space of quiet power, you become untouchable in the best way, rooted, calm, unbothered, and profoundly free. For so many of us, pleasing became survival. We learned early that being agreeable earned us safety, that being easy to love meant being easy to manage. So we made ourselves small to avoid conflict. We swallowed our needs to keep the peace. We said yes with a smile while something inside us quietly screamed, "This isn't right." And for a while, it worked. We became the dependable ones, the kind ones, the ones who never rocked the boat. But over time, something began to fracture. Our smiles felt forced, our bodies carried the weight of our silence, and the peace we were trying to preserve, it didn't live inside us. It only existed in other people's comfort. Here's the raw truth. People-pleasing is not peacekeeping. It's self-abandonment. It's a survival response, not a soul agreement. Every time you choose someone else's expectations over your own alignment, you teach yourself that your truth is less important. You train your nervous system to expect disconnection as a way of life. And that disconnection is exhausting. Real peace, the kind that lives in your chest and lets you sleep deeply at night, doesn't come from how many people approve of you. It comes from alignment. It comes from living in such deep integrity with yourself that you no longer need permission to follow what feels true. It means your choices mirror your values. Your yes is honest. Your no is clear. And your soul stops flinching every time your mouth opens. And when you start living in alignment, you stop negotiating your worth. You stop apologizing for your needs. You stop shrinking in rooms that can't hold your fullness. And yes, people will react. Some will be disappointed when you stop overgiving. Some will call you distant when you stop over-explaining. Some will say, "You've changed." And they'll be right. You have changed. You've come home to yourself. And here's the most powerful part. Alignment doesn't just bring peace, it attracts the right people. The ones who don't just tolerate your truth, but respect it. People who don't punish your boundaries, but meet you in them. When you live from alignment, you no longer feel the need to convince anyone of your worth. You simply embody it. Pleasing will drain you. Alignment will build you. So ask yourself gently, where am I pleasing to avoid rejection? Where am I performing to stay accepted? And then ask this, what would it feel like to trust that the truth of who I am is enough, without decoration, without apology, without delay? That's where peace begins, not in their approval, but in your own presence. We are taught to chase goals, to set targets, to grind, hustle, strive. We map out our futures like blueprints and hang our worth on things we can measure, achievements, relationships, recognition, results. And while there's nothing wrong with dreaming or striving, it becomes dangerous when our peace is tied to a very specific outcome, because life rarely follows our script. And when it doesn't, we suffer, not because we failed, but because we refuse to release control. Detachment isn't giving up. It's letting go of the illusion that everything must unfold according to our plan. It's saying, I will show up with my whole heart, but I will not grip the outcome like my life depends on it. Because when you cling too tightly, you block the very flow you're trying to invite. You trade fluidity for rigidity. You stop listening to life and start trying to overpower it. There's a quiet kind of freedom and surrender, not the dramatic kind, not the collapse, but the mature, grounded kind, the kind that whispers, I trust that what is meant for me won't need to be forced. When you detach from the outcome, you start aligning with a deeper current. You move from striving to allowing, from proving to simply being. And in that space, flow returns. Flow doesn't live in pressure, it lives in presence. It shows up when you stop trying to orchestrate every variable and begin